Good day. My name is David Odeh. I am a fourth-year law student of Benue State University, Makurdi, and a virtual intern at HARLEM Solicitors. I shall be delivering a lecture on the topic Type Approval of Telecommunications Equipment under the Nigerian laws. In this lecture, you'll be exposed to the legal framework on type approval of telecommunications equipment. Importantly, this lecture will familiarize you with the provisions of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 on type approval. You will also traverse the provisions of the Type Approval Regulations 2008 vis-a-vis the Type Approval Standards and the Type Approval Guidelines, and finally look at the Standards Organization of Nigeria as it regulates standards of telecommunications devices. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to achieve the following. Understand what type approval of telecommunications equipment means, learn the laws regulating type approval of telecommunications equipment in Nigeria, analyze the legal position and legal requirements for type approval of telecommunications equipment in Nigeria. So, let us lay a foundation. The Nigerian Communications Commission is empowered by the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 to establish and enforce standards with regards to telecommunications equipment in operation in Nigeria to ensure that they operate seamlessly and safely within the Nigerian telecommunications environment. As such, all equipment manufacturers, vendors, and operators, including customer devices such as mobile phones and wireless adapters, must ensure that their equipment comply with the applicable standards as mandated by the Commission. So, what then is type approval? Type approval, also known as certificate of conformity, is granted to a product that meets the minimum set of regulatory, technical, and safety requirements. Generally, type approval is required before a product can be used in a particular country. So, applying this foundational definition to type approval in telecommunications parlance, it would therefore mean the minimum set of regulatory, technical, and safety requirements that telecommunications equipment must meet before they can be used in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As such, a telecommunications type approval is the term for the process of determining and registering communications equipment to be used in Nigeria without causing damage to the network or long or short-term interference to the network. We'll proceed, therefore, to analyze the laws in Nigeria on type approval of telecommunications equipment, beginning with the Nigerian Communications Act 2003, hereinafter referred to as the Act or the NCA 2003 for simplicity. By virtue of Section 70 of the Act, the Nigerian Communications Commission is empowered to establish and enforce standards, regulations, and guidelines to give full effect to the provisions of the Act and for the Commission's due administration. Specifically, Section 134 of the Act provides that the Commission may make regulations with regards to the provisions of Part 3 of Chapter 8 of the Act, which deals on technical standards and may charge such fees on type approval functions. The Section 134 and Section 70 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 are the enabling sections for the promulgation of the Type Approval Regulations 2008, the Type Approval Standards, and Type Approval Guidelines. Going further, Section 132 sub 1 of the Act provides that the Commission shall conduct type approval tests and issue certificates with respect to communications equipment or facilities to be used in Nigeria. Also, by Section 132 sub 2, licensed service or facilities providers, equipment manufacturers or vendors shall obtain a type approval certificate from the Commission with regards to their communications equipment or facilities prior to installation or sale of such equipment or facility in Nigeria. As such, obtaining a type approval certificate is a fundamental obligation that must be satisfied before communications equipment or facilities can be installed or sold in Nigeria. It should be noted that by Section 133 of the NCA 2003, failure to obtain a type approval certificate prior to sale or installation of communications equipment or facilities is an offense, which makes the offender liable upon conviction to a fine not more than 100,000 naira or to imprisonment not exceeding 1 year or both. Now, we shall proceed to analyze the provisions of the Type Approval Regulations 2008, hereinafter referred to as the 2008 Regulations. In exercise of the powers conferred on the Commission by virtue of Section 70 and Section 134 of the NCA 2003, the Commission promulgated the Type Approval Regulations 2008, the Type Approval Standards, and the Type Approval Guidelines. The Type Approval Regulations 2008 provides a framework for the approval of communications equipment for connection to communications network. But before we delve into the provisions of the 2008 regulations, it is imperative, at least at the outset, to clarify certain key terms since they are relevant and recurrent in the regulations. These terms are equipment type, equipment holder, and declaration of conformity. Regulation 32 of the 2008 regulations provides interpretation of these terms. As such, according to Regulation 32, equipment holder means a provider of communication services or a supplier of communications equipment. Equipment type means a type of communications equipment specified in terms of its manufacturing brand name, trade name, model number, version number, and function. A declaration of conformity means a declaration meeting the requirements specified in these regulations and the type approval guidelines that an equipment type complies with applicable type approval standards. The type approval regulations 2008 apply to every equipment holder, and by regulation 2, the regulations are intended to promote interoperability between communications networks. It's also there to ensure that communications equipment used in communications networks is safe and to define the process for type approval of communications equipment. So, what then are the conditions for supplying or using communications equipment in Nigeria? Regulation 9 of the 2008 regulations provides that an equipment holder may use or supply communications equipment in Nigeria if the Commission has approved the equipment type of the equipment, or B, if the equipment is exempted from type approval pursuant to Regulation 19 and Regulation 20 of the regulations. So, what then are the contents of applications for type approval? This is provided for generally under Regulation 13. By Regulation 13, an equipment holder may apply to the Commission for type approval, and in doing so, he shall assemble an application in accordance with the provisions with the type approval guidelines, including the name and contact details of the applicant, the equipment type requested for type approval, a declaration of conformity, and other necessary information that the Commission may from time to time require to access the application. By Regulation 16, if the Commission approves an application for a type approval, it shall include the equipment type on the list of approved equipment types maintained pursuant to Regulation 5 of the 2008 regulations. And also, where the Commission fails to approve, where the Commission receives an application for a type approval, it shall communicate its decision on an applicant and reasons for any refusal within 1 month of receiving such application. Conditions for revoking type approval. Under Regulation 17, the Commission may revoke a type approval or annul an exemption from type approval if there is significant evidence that equipment of the equipment type does not comply with applicable type approval standards or interferes with the operation of communications networks or other communications equipment or constitutes a public hazard, and the Commission shall publish a notice to inform equipment holders of the revocation of a type approval or annulment of exemption from type approval. By the provisions of Regulation 27, every equipment holder that fails to fulfill an obligation under these regulations or the type approval standards or the type approval guidelines shall have committed a contravention. Finally, let us look at the Standards Organization of Nigeria as it regulates standards of telecommunication devices. The Standards Organization of Nigeria is the sole statutory body vested with the responsibility of standardizing and regulating the quality of all products in Nigeria. The SON also regulates the quality of telecommunications devices that are imported into Nigeria. By virtue of the Standards Organization of Nigeria Act, Anybody that intends to import mobile phones or devices into Nigeria shall obtain a certificate from the Standards Organization of Nigeria. But there is a concern. The exercise of regulatory mandates of the NCC and the Standards Organization of Nigeria with regards to certification of telecommunications devices is uncoordinated, and this could create a potential for regulatory conflict between the two regulators. However, there has been no reported incidents of such conflict since both regulators are working hand in hand and collaborating to address the influx of standard telecommunications devices into Nigeria. So that would be all for this lecture. I hope you've been able to understand what type approval of telecommunications equipment means and learn the laws and legal requirements for type approval of telecommunications equipment in Nigeria. To learn more, please visit www.harlemsolicitors.com and follow Harlem Solicitors on LinkedIn. Also, kindly share your questions and contributions on this topic. That will be all for today. Do have a nice day. Thank you.